Hi, and welcome to this new episode of Biopilates Deep Dive. Today, I would like to take you into an exercise that, at first glance, seems almost simple, almost elegant, almost choreographic, and yet requires considerable biomechanical intelligence. This exercise is the roll down with obliques on the reformer. We begin seated upright in a neutral position. The pelvis is neutral, the spine is neutral, the legs are extended, and together the arms are reaching forward slightly below shoulder level. The shoulder blades are stabilized, and we hold the straps with the palms facing the torso. Already in this setup, everything is there, nothing is passive. Neutrality is not the absence of action. On the contrary, it is a very refined organization of forces. What I love about this exercise is that it forces us to understand that the spine never functions as a single block. It works as a succession of segments, like a living architecture, capable of mobility only when supported by deep stability. And here we are asking this architecture to handle two things at the same time: flexion and rotation. The movement begins with an exhalation. We initiate by rolling the anterior superior iliac spines away from the front of the femurs. It is a beautiful cue because it prevents us from simply throwing ourselves backward. We are not collapsing. We are organizing a controlled posterior tilt followed by a progressive lumbar flexion. And here, the first essential point is this: flexion begins from below. It does not begin in the shoulders. It does not begin in the neck. It begins with deep abdominal engagement, with that sensation of the abdomen hollowing without collapsing, the pelvis rolling, the sacrum finding the carriage, and the lumbar spine entering a supported curve. In the Stott Pilates logic, this action is never dissociated from the work of the transversus abdominis, the pelvic floor, pelvic control, and lateral thoracic breathing. The transversus creates a kind of corset. The pelvic floor contributes to lumbopelvic stability, and the exhalation facilitates the abdominal recruitment necessary to protect the spine during flexion. Once in this flexed position, we inhale to maintain, and maintaining is already a tremendous task because the temptation is strong to release, to lose the shape, to let the chest collapse or the shoulders fall forward. But here, we must remain in flexion without collapsing. We must stay connected. We breathe into the sides of the rib cage, as Merrithew emphasizes. Three-dimensional breathing prevents compensatory elevation of the upper chest and supports better trunk organization. Then comes rotation, and this is where the exercise becomes truly fascinating. When we talk about spinal rotation, we must be precise. Rotation is not distributed evenly along the spine. The lumbar region has a relatively limited capacity for rotation due to the orientation of its facet joints. The thoracic region, however, is much more capable of rotating. Therefore, in the roll down with obliques, rotation should be thought of primarily in the upper trunk, especially in the mid to upper thoracic spine, while the lumbopelvic region remains as stable as possible. In other words, the pelvis must not participate in a chaotic way. It must not twist or shift. It supports. It serves as the foundation. Lumbar flexion is maintained, but visible rotation expresses itself higher up through the rib cage. This is exactly what makes this exercise so refined. It teaches us dissociation. When you rotate to one side and extend the arms as if delivering a punch, you are not seeking maximum amplitude. You are seeking an organized rotation, a distributed torsion, a movement that remains breath-driven, controlled, powered by the obliques, but moderated by the deep musculature of the spine. On the abdominal side, the action is classic yet subtle. The internal oblique on the side you rotate toward works in synergy with the contralateral external oblique. This pair generates most of the trunk rotation. But if we stopped there, we would miss half of the story. Because behind this visible movement, deeper, almost hidden, are the short rotators and long rotators. These muscles belong to the transversospinal group in the deepest layer of the back. The short rotators originate on the transverse process of a vertebra and insert on the spinous process of the vertebra immediately above. The long rotators extend from the transverse process of a vertebra to the spinous process 2 levels above. Their innervation comes from the dorsal rami of the spinal nerves. Their primary action is a fine ipsilateral rotation, accompanied by a crucial role in intersegmental stabilization and spinal proprioception. Why are they so important here? Because they do not produce spectacular rotation, they produce intelligent rotation. They modulate, they prevent one segment from moving too fast, too far, or another from collapsing. They ensure quality of glide and control between vertebrae. They are the guardians of detail. The large obliques organize global force, but the rotatories control local precision. This is why this exercise is not just an exercise for the obliques. It is also an exercise in segmental control of the spine. The shoulder blades also play a crucial role. They must remain stabilized on the rib cage. Marathi reminds us that the scapula must be supported without excessive rigidity, and that a lack of scapular stability quickly leads to overload in the neck and shoulders. Here, if the shoulders round forward when you bend or extend the arms, you immediately lose the quality of the movement. You are no longer rotating from the trunk, you collapse into the shoulder girdle. The movement becomes poor, and the cervical spine will compensate. The neck, therefore, must remain in line with the thoracic spine. The chin does not drop into the chest. The head does not lead the rotation. The method strongly emphasizes cervicocranial placement. The cervical spine must continue the line of the thoracic spine without excessive flexion or superficial tension. I would also like to emphasize breathing. We exhale to initiate the flexion. We inhale to stabilize. We exhale again to rotate. This is not arbitrary. Exhalation naturally supports flexion and facilitates abdominal engagement. During rotation, it helps maintain deep connection rather than pushing with force. Breathing here is not decorative. It organizes intra-abdominal pressure, rib cage management, and the very quality of motor control. If I had to summarize the essence of this exercise, I would say this: flexion without collapse, rotation without destabilization. Common mistakes are very revealing. Throwing yourself backward instead of articulating, losing abdominal support and flaring the ribs, letting the pelvis rotate with the thorax, pulling with the arms instead of organizing the trunk, locking the elbows, breaking the wrists, dropping the chin, lifting the shoulders. All of these mistakes tell the same story. We have left the center, we have left the segmental control, we have left intelligent movement. On the contrary, when the movement is correct, something extraordinary happens. You feel the pelvis anchoring, the spine unfolding and then suspending in flexion, rotation emerging from the rib cage, the obliques working, yes, but without brutality, the deep spinal muscles providing structure, nuance, precision, and the arms becoming nothing more than an elegant consequence of a movement initiated in the right place. In teaching, I find this exercise invaluable because it connects everything. It connects the 5 principles. It connects breathing, pelvic placement, rib cage organization, scapular stability, and head neck control. It also connects the visible and the invisible. What we see are the arms, the flexion, the rotation. What we are truly seeking is deep coordination, modulation, and neuromuscular intelligence. This is probably why the roll down with obliques remains, for me, a profoundly challenging exercise. Because when you perform the rotation, the carriage should not move. And that is what makes it extremely difficult, because it does not seek external performance, it seeks internal coherence. And when that coherence is there, the spine no longer undergoes the movement, it inhabits it. Thank you for being with me throughout this episode. I hope this deep dive into the roll down with obliques has helped you better understand the logic of this exercise, its biomechanical finesse, and the importance of deep spinal control in movement. I look forward to seeing you very soon for the next episode of Biopilates Deep Dive. Don't forget to subscribe to be the first to discover upcoming podcasts.